Trust issues are created in people that decide they are going to trust first versus someone that doesn't experience trust issues is always responding to trust as opposed to giving it. Trust is the complete understanding of how it is that someone is going to interact in particular situations, regardless of how different or the crowd that happens to be around. Welcome to another episode of The Ordinary Connection, and you are with Keegan again. Okay, so first off, we're going to start off with two thank yous. Okay, the first thank you is thank you to everybody that has subscribed. 2 weeks ago, I told you guys that our target was 1,000 subs, and we are about 50 people away from 500. So that's 50% of the goal that's about to be achieved. So thank you for that. The second one is there is one of the videos that has broken 1,000 views, and that video is the After Us video. Now, that has no real significance to anybody else but me, but that After Us episode is one of the episodes I was very reluctant to put out. I was worried that the vulnerability wasn't going to be something that lands. I was worried that the topic of the conversation wasn't going to resonate with people, and you guys are showing me otherwise. Okay, so this week we are going to attempt a unguided episode. Okay, I'm going to let you guys into what it is that's happening in my head, and I have no idea where the episode is going to go. I'm going to say that now. There's going to be things that I say that don't make sense. Okay, they are uncertain, they are wrong, they are assumptions, they are thoughts, both about me and about the world, and we're just going to go with that. Okay, we don't know what that means yet, but we will figure it out. Okay, so generally we do the unsolicited advice column at this point. Now, it's kind of cheating if I write it down and then read it back to you guys, so we are not going to do that today. Instead, I'm going to speak about something that I am worried about, that I am struggling with, that I'm trying to understand. And we're going to see what happens if we go off the cuff and just speak about it. So, emotional regulation. The bane of our existence, right? So, according to Mark Manson, that feeling brain, the emotional side of you, is the thing that potentially is in control of the car most often. But when I think of emotional regulation, I kind of get stuck between, is it either the accelerator in the car or is it the brakes? Hell, who knows? Maybe it's the clutch dictating how fast or how slow it is that you do something. But if I'm taking that information and I unpack it and I feel what it is that I believe, then maybe it's the driver. Maybe it's not the car. Maybe it's not the destination. Maybe the most important thing is how it is that that driver wants to perceive what it is that's happening around it. A driver that's been in more accidents is more perceptive to people doing ignorant things on the road, and therefore the expectation is that ignorance will surround you. Which means if you apply some kind of control, you can change that. Interesting, right? And the argument that I have with that is, then that doesn't mean if you think that the roads are safe, that they are. So emotional regulation happens somewhere between you getting into the car and you getting onto the road. And at the point where you touch the street, so to speak, you need to start making some kind of decision. And those decisions are then what gets reflected back as emotional regulation, because it is based on when someone sets you off, based on when you are feeling low, based on when you are high energy. What do you do with all of these things? Do you regulate? Do you maintain a normal? Or are you all over the place and that is what you call regulation, because highs and lows are also justified, right? So that's just a little bit of thinking there. There's another thing that I want to speak about, considering we spoke about connection in last week's episode, or rather what it is that the ordinary connection is. There's another side to the coin that I've been kind of wrestling with, and I'm trying to understand that piece a little bit more this week. So if the ordinary connection is more focused on the fact that we are all ordinary, even in our specialness, and therefore that gives us topics to speak about to one another, right? For us to converse. Your life experience, my life experience, and the differences between those two things does not make you better or worse equipped, me neither, not at all. Instead, it gives us an ability to highlight and find those differences and thus connect. Okay, so if I can connect it means that this thing is working. But there's something that I thought about that's underneath that I kind of want to focus on a little bit more today in the conversation that we're going to have. And that conversation is about assumptions, right? Overthinking, all of that. I've seen a lot of stuff this week that's kind of resonated with me with regards to overthinking, but something that's kind of standing out a little bit more is this idea of what is it that's going on behind some of the thoughts that I'm already having. So, a simple example or a simple piece of conversation that wouldn't make sense, in my opinion, to most other people is that I put a lot of pressure on the word friend. Okay. And the reason that I put a lot of pressure on the word friend is because in my life, I've kind of had a little bit of a tumultuous experience when it comes to friendship. Okay. Whether it is not understanding why it is that someone would do something, that's an easy piece to understand. But there's more problematic assumptions that live in the idea of what friendship is to me. And one of those things, or one of those things that I've grown to making a decision within my own life, is that there are a couple of rules that you need to apply. Okay. One of those rules is simple. Don't sleep with your friends. Okay. Yeah, sure, fight me, whatever. I get it. It's rough out there. People are not connecting. They're trying to. Everybody's issue currently is connection. And that connection is whether it's too strong or too loose, whether it is too close or too far, whatever that is something that comes back to connection. And sure, there's a lot of people that are comfortable being alone, but even they need connection. Okay, because society doesn't thrive in bubbles. Okay, unfortunately. But with my understanding of friendship, or what it is that I've experienced as friendship, I don't necessarily think that's particularly positive. And because of the fact that I haven't experienced a positive response to what it is that people that call me their friend have treated me as, I have a negative connotation when it comes to that word. So it's a volatile word to me, which is weird because it's a positive thing to everybody. Most people, sorry. Assumption. And within this assumption, I mean, there's a couple of funny things. You are not my friend if you are not trying to take the person that I'm dating. And that sounds messed up because I can say it out loud and I can recognize that it's messed up. But the irony of that conversation is that in my experience of friendship, that has been what friends do. And it's not their fault. It's just a thing that happened. And whether that is from the first person that I liked or whether that is from last week, okay, this is a fairly normal interaction of what it is that friendship is. And the reason is, I guess, my interpretation of this was that these were people that are looking out for me and this is them looking out for me. And that's not the truth. Now, here's the problem. Years later, what do I do with that? If I don't want that anymore, if I've decided that this is not safe, this is not sustainable, this is not consistent, I'm just going to end up cutting more and more people off as I progress through life. And the problem is, a lot of people play that down, and that's also where it bothers me. You see, if someone is uncomfortable with something, in my brain, you don't do it. That's pretty much how it is. But if there's only discomfort when someone is caught doing something, that's not necessarily a character decision. That is more a I don't want to get caught decision, and that's maybe a fear of being naughty, in my opinion. So that doesn't really make sense. But there's a couple of other assumptions. Let's see if we can dig and unpack. What else do we have in my brain? Assumptions that make sense. I'm just going to riff some stuff off. I'm going to say it. I don't know how much of what I say I'm going to recall, but we're going to go with it. So a couple of assumptions that I believe that I think do not make sense. Okay. Value is not defined by what it is that you offer. It is defined by what it is that somebody else can interpret, receive. Closeness is not dictated by anything other than proximity and experience of life. Trust issues are created in people that decide they are going to trust first, versus someone that doesn't experience trust issues is always responding to trust as opposed to giving it. Trust is the complete understanding of how it is that someone is going to interact in particular situations, regardless of how different or the crowd that happens to be around. A a sense of belonging comes from living within your purpose, but not understanding your purpose allows you to feel disconnected from whatever it is that you do, and therefore decline or decrease what it is that you will assume is value. You are as important as the number of people that check in on you. You are you are relevant without your ability to provide value. However, you are not considered without value. You are. There's a lot. This is weird. It's a weird thing climbing into my head. Um, the pain that you feel makes sense to you because of the fact that it is the most common experience you have had, and therefore you can understand it as pain. However, when someone deviates from that cycle, you struggle to comprehend what it is that they are trying to communicate. Another assumption: effort is temporary and based on what it is that you can provide for someone else. And if that effort is removed, you will seem less valuable. Okay. I think that's enough of that. I have no idea where those come from. I have no idea why they are there, but they are there. So yeah, VK, Villain Keegan, is this other person, right? This voice in my head, this piece of who it is that I'm becoming. And Villain Keegan has decided to shine when there are lows, to shine when there are slumps. And sometimes the slumps are connected to people, sometimes they're connected to places, but most times they are connected to how it is that I receive my reflection. Okay. And one of the fun parts about the last couple of weeks has been I'm getting to experience a new type of variation that doesn't make 100% sense to me. So I'm panicking. And I'm panicking daily. I'm panicking hourly sometimes because of the fact that I do not understand what forward looks like. But in turn, I am being met with a version of myself that is also asking questions like, why is forward the direction? Why is more than what I have what I require to understand my place in this space? And these little thoughts, I don't think they're big thoughts. They're just things that niggle at pieces of my thinking. They take me out the game, and that's where the problem comes in, right? And I've been kind of wrestling with this idea of everybody speaks about the fact that you are not meant to do something for validation, and to some degree I agree. However, the problem then comes in with, what if you are not doing it for validation? And anything can be, just like everybody tends to have a notion about what it is that gaslighting is, even though there's a meaning of this term. When it comes to value, when it comes to understanding, when it comes to self, that is a very dynamic thing. Today you can be somebody and tomorrow you can be somebody else. I do believe that that is a possibility. But I don't think that everybody has the discipline to do that. And I don't think that merely because people maintain the status quo, that can be referred to as discipline. Because there can be a lot of fears worked into discipline. There can be a lot of pain worked into how it is that you connect, and even the fact that you don't connect. So asking questions about something as simple as friendship, and I mean, I've said that thing to guys, and guys are like, Keegan, that's a thing that doesn't make sense to you. But then those are the same guys that do the thing that I just said is how I see friends. And it's not to take away. It's not. I think maybe it's because of the fact that I perceive, I assume, I carry myself in a particular way that I think there are certain friendships that are problematic, and there are certain friendships that are problematic because of the fact that the role itself is not understood. And whether it's a matter of understanding my history, whether it's a matter of going back to what it is that I've gone through, sure, this is nobody else's fault but my own. I understand that. However, that does not mean that the answers, solutions, or fixes that I've come up with are correct. And if I cannot accept that, that doesn't mean that I can accept that these things can change. So if my understanding of friendship is that this is what friends do, I will make it harder for someone to be my friend in the hopes that they are not that person instead of just having a conversation. That's a waste of time. Okay. I'm learning that I prefer being in a space when I can have something said and dealt with, and whether it's polished or not, I will always prefer that. But a lack of safety is something that is very, very particular to me, because safety owed is not safety created, and that's a problem for me. Someone else can feel as though you are responsible for creating their safety, and that cannot be a thing, because if we go back to emotional regulation, everybody should be getting in their own car. Now, here's where it gets funny. If you are the type of person that gets close to people based on proximity, that means that time spent is made sense of based on a fraction of a person. This is the reason I have trust issues with people that want to be my friend, right? This 5 little connected things, this is a straight line to me. However, the reason that that is concerning to me is because of the fact that that leaves very little room for people to be called out. People are not meant to be called out. I get that. However, when a bond gets less surface, I think that that is the thing that comes with it. Assumption. Again, I'm a lot of what it is that I'm saying is buried under the assumptions that I have of the world. That doesn't make it fact, and please do not latch on to it. If you agree, this is where you tell me, though. If you disagree, this is where you tell me, because I'm the person that's having the assumption, right? And if you agree with the assumption, I'd like to say you are potentially wrong. Any assumption that you have, even if it's based on 100% of the empirical evidence you have experienced, it does not mean it is fact. It does not make it all the way true. There are people that can prove you wrong. There are people that will prove you wrong. If you, in your car, give capacity, give space, give room for that to happen, opposed to confirmation bias, where you take what it is that is your conclusion and you take information out of what it is that you're experiencing to support that conclusion. This is what we are trying to avoid. This is something I'm terribly guilty of. This is exactly the driving force to every single assumption that I'm having. Every person, see, there's it. Every, always, never, these 3 words. That is the easiest way that you can hear someone is in assumption land. You always, you never. The minute someone has gone there, they cannot see the whole thing. And it is hard to have a conversation with that. Let it happen. Listen for more than just the judgment, because it's also probably pain. It's also probably fear. And that's where the emotional regulation gets difficult. Because if I'm saying you always, that means that it's your fault. But that's not what I'm trying to say. But it's exactly what I said, is it not? It's your fault. That's not what's gonna happen. Because at the end of the day, there needs to be a line, right? If at a point your parents are not responsible, then at a point you need to recognize any person you interact with, any person you bump into in your life, any person that you connect with, hell, they have a full series, a full set of experiences that you don't. They have a whole life that you don't know about, and they are not in the mood to tell you about it because they don't want to relive half of those things. They don't remember. They don't recall. They can't access it. There's no smell to trigger them. There's no sound to trigger them. It doesn't feel the same way that it did. These are all things that you can see if you look hard enough. Or if you're like me and you're an overthinker trying to figure out people without them speaking, terrible move. Don't do it. It's going to work against you every time. Because asking questions makes sense, but unfulfilling answers are also problematic. Bad answers, wrong answers, frustrating answers, hurtful answers, answers you never expected to hear. Because that's what tends to happen when you're willing to ask the question. That's why you don't want to ask the question. Because if you ask the question, you can't have the assumption, because the person will give you the answer. But if the answer doesn't justify the assumptions that you've been having, you will refute the evidence because of the fact that it does not confirm your conclusion. You have decided that someone is treating you poorly because that must mean that they care about you less, and therefore it is their fault. Always. But it's not. And it's not your fault for always showing up, and it's not your fault for always trying to talk, and it's not your fault for being quiet, and it's not your fault for stonewalling. Those are not things we need to even talk about. You need to ask yourself what the purpose of your battles are. Do you fight with someone to connect, or do you fight with someone to have your point heard? Do you have your assumptions because you want to change them, or do you have your assumptions because you don't know how to get answers, and the person you want answers from is not willing, in the mood, capable, whichever one you want to pick, of giving you said answers? It might not be a child's job to raise parents. I agree. Might not be their job. It's also not a parent's job to raise their child, but it is their responsibility. And I think that word is a very important thing. Because if you take it upon yourself to be responsible for the types of interactions that it is that you're having in the world, you are going to change a lot of what it is that you're experiencing. Removing yourself from people that do one thing and say another. This has been a big theme over the course of the last 2 weeks. In my life, it's the actions versus words thing. And that's funny because 9 times out of 10, it's the assumption of the words other people say in relation to the actions you can see committed. And these two things are missing big parts on the other side. There are actions people do that you cannot see. And there are words that people do not know how to say. Okay, so sit with that. Okay, we are still going to do music recs this week. I will attempt, let me say, to do a little bit more of these, because I don't know if you can tell, but the way that I speak when I'm not following a script is a little bit more here, but also it's here. It's all over the place. My brain jumps and runs all over the show. So we are going to try and do a little bit more of these, and it will take a little bit of practice on my side. And that sounds weird considering it's off the cuff. It's about trusting what it is that's going on in my head and trusting that sharing that with you is important. Okay? So as always, don't forget to tell your friends, and your friends. Okay, the goal is still 1,000. So please help me on that journey. The second thing is, to everybody that makes it this far in the videos, I do want to say a big thank you. I've been kind of struggling on feeling like I'm boring and that I'm not interesting, because I thought that was the goal of what it is that the podcast was for, but it's not. Okay? The goal is for me to tell you the truth as best I can, as often as I can, and not even to the point where it stays true. It's the truth up until the moment where I click stop on the record button, because that is how easy it is for life to change. Okay? And it's a journey. It's a slow one. It's going to be a slow one, but we are chasing consistency, and that's going to be where it is that we stop this one. Okay. Then we're going to do this. The songs will be in the playlist, so please do not forget. The podcast is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Last week, there was like a 90-second blackout in the video in the beginning. If you have never listened to me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please watch last week's video. If you can handle listening to me without seeing my face, let me know. The first question that I posed, or the question that I posed in the comments last week, is, do I in fact sound better than what it is that I look? There are still improvements that need to happen. There are things that need to be done. However, it does not mean that there isn't room for improvement. And I'm having fun with that side of things. So again, if there's things you'd like to see, things you'd like me to talk about, I'm going to start generating that list, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so this week we are going to focus on some music recommendations. The music recommendations for this week are different to what it is that I've been doing. These are not new songs. These are more songs I've been listening to. Over the course of the last 2 weeks, things have been a little bit chaotic, so I needed where my comfort kind of lived, right? So the first recommendation for this week is Benkani Mayame, right? Old, lovely album. Listen to it. If French music you have secret gems, send me. I want them. Right? The second song for this week is going to be Saturn by Devin Donnell. And then there's a little bit of darkness in this song. This next song, it's not meant to be dark. It's just a song that had some darkness in it. It's resonated with me, but don't stress. We're okay. We're fine. It's just heavy melancholy music. Okay, we're gonna be okay with that. The song is Thorns by Kofi Stone featuring Jacob Banks. And then as a little pick me up, our next song is going to be Mom's Whiskey by Marlon Craft and Code to the Friend. Just a lovely, lovely listen. And then the final song. The final song is all Keegan all the time, right? This is a song that I will know you are listening to the podcast. This is a song that I will know that you are listening to the playlist, because this song, even amongst my friends, they know it is a song that pretty much only I sing along to every single time. The track is Scented Candles by Wedding Crashers. I have no idea where these guys are from. I have no idea if they're still making music. It's a song I found a couple of years back, and I haven't been caught so quickly by a new song in a while. So there's that. So those are our 5 tracks for this week. And then we are going to quickly do an anime rec as well. This week's anime recommendation is going to be Togen Anki. Now, Togen Anki is about Oni, which is like demon children that are going up against this agency called the Momotaro Agency, which are basically the good guys. They wear all white and the demons are the bad guys, except a lot of what happens in the show comes across as the other way. The way that the characters are put together is very, very interesting, and it's something that I think is very fun. There are a lot of silly moments, there are a lot of serious moments, and sometimes there might even be someone that surprisingly cuts onions in the house. We don't know why that happens, but for some reason, it's just something that happens. Just ninjas break into your house, cut some onions, and then they run away. That's just how it is. So that is our anime rec for this week. So yeah, assumptions, I can't even summarize because we're just going off the cuff at this point. But we didn't do a writing prompt. Now this is the only thing that I've cheated on, and it's why I've left it until last, because apparently the long silence that I took to write it is going to be the close. So what we'll do is we're going to move the writing prompt to the final thing so that the next episode, this is where we'll start. Okay, we're just trying to develop our system. This week on our prompt is your fears fail when. Okay, so don't be confused. You're going to start with just what it is that the beginning of the prompt is, and you're going to let it run. And then if you feel free sharing, there's a comment box pretty much everywhere, TikTok, YouTube, all of that. Pick a place to talk. If not, that's okay, right? So yeah, the video's going to close out. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for every time that you've been here. If there's any other old videos that you want to go and look at, please make sure to do that. And if there are things you'd like me to try, make sure to let me know. Okay? Keegan out.